Friedrich Schleiermacher's early views of the world as a place open to intuition and interpretation helped lay a modern-era foundation for hermeneutics. He generalized hermeneutics as the attempt to creatively suggest possible meanings and interpretations, or show relations between things in new ways, rather than simply document or record them. Hermeneutics gained prominence in the modern era primarily as a reaction to German Romanticism, which held as its central tenet the idea that reason should rule all, and living according to intuition or emotion was akin to immaturity. Both Martin Heidegger and Hans-Georg Gadamer were central figures in the development and understanding of 20th century hermeneutics. David Smith states, hermeneutics always stands in tension, often conflict, with the desire to secure and fix meaning once and for all. It is a methodology and philosophy that pushes against the reduction and fragmentation of knowledge and truth. It does not negate the importance of the scientific method, but creates a deeper understanding of the phenomenon being studied. Hermeneutics as a methodology can evolve in many forms with no set formula to follow. It is the philosophical understanding a researcher moves forward with. Hermeneutes often uncover ways of accessing a concept without resorting to a conventional, validated set of pre-specified procedures that provide the distance of objectivity. Conversations, in-depth reading of texts, dialogues, interviews, life writing, and many others can all be viewed through a hermeneutic lens. These alternative modes of reasoning and researching always consider the relationships, the resonances, and the disjunctions between formal and rationalistic modes of Western epistemology and ontology. Hermeneutics is sometimes criticized for its conceptually ambiguous nature. Its literature is often viewed as dense and impenetrable, and consequently there are few introductory overviews that invite the beginner into a dialogue about this subject. Given the dense nature of hermeneutics, it seems simplest to help introduce it with a few qualifying features. Hermeneutic inquiry's primary goal is to understand, not to explain. It is an approach that seeks to open or create space for understanding that honors the history, tradition, and culture of a topic, while maintaining acute awareness of the prejudices and assumptions that investigators bring to the work. True understanding is reached when a fusion of both of these horizons occur. In hermeneutics, coming to understand a text, idea, or topic occurs through what is known as the Hermeneutic Circle. This methodology for understanding requires a deep sense of the topic as a whole while taking care to understand the independent parts thoroughly. These two levels of understanding must be integrated to create a complete and complex view. The discipline is grounded in the idea of nestling into a locale and working it well, of gathering and cultivating, of seeking out connections in a place and resisting the severances that simply profit distraction. As Kinchlow states, all researchers will produce different descriptions of an object of inquiry depending on what part of the fabric they have focused on. Hermeneutics is acutely aware of the influences of language and history. Gadamer states that a person who believes he is free of prejudices, relying on the objectivity of his procedures and denying that he himself is conditioned by historical circumstances, experiences the power of the prejudices that unconsciously dominate him. In the hermeneutic tradition, language refers to both the words we choose to use and how we attempt to understand. Language is understood as living, continually being made and remade by those who speak. For hermeneutes, to fail to give linguistic and historical influences proper interpretation would be to invite bias and prejudice into their work. The role of the researcher in hermeneutics is imperative, as researcher becomes the translator or interpreter of the text. The very act of interpretation demands that we focus on, highlight, or give intonation to parts of text. The translator has to understand that highlighting is their task, and that all narratives tell one story over another story. The interpreter also seeks out the hermeneutic conversation between various forms of text. The goal is to seek relationship and enable these diverse forms of text to speak to one another. The researcher as interpreter must, as Gadamer puts it, break open the being of an object by considering the significance of each word, its relationship to other words, and ultimate connection to worldview. In essence, hermeneutic research is rooted in life as it is actually lived, with the view that designating absolutes, either explicitly or implicitly, is not conducive to discourse or true understanding. Hermeneutics is grounded in the wisdom that comes with ambiguity, and its honest ability to describe the ever-shifting cadence of what is. In the words of Tait and Johnson, a hermeneute's task is not to squeeze the richness out of experience in favor of efficiency, nor is it to make sure that creativity and discovery are compromised. We want to see questions flourish and evolve into creative insights. Our task is to continue pushing the line in new directions to illuminate our humanity and communicative worlds. Hermeneutics encourages both quantitative and qualitative researchers to take a step back, to allow a conceptual distance from their work in order to engage in self-conscious criticism and intentional acknowledgement of bias and presuppositions. Hermeneutics insists on the consideration that nothing is independent of interpretation. While traditional research is built upon precise assessment of natural phenomena, hermeneutics maintains that to understand things properly, we must return to a world which precedes knowledge, in relation to which scientific abstractions are a derivative sign language. An absence of awareness of what is, beyond what is written, only contributes to the production of reduced understandings of the complexity of life. Gadamer has written that the true locus of hermeneutics is this in-between. Hermeneutics always considers the relationships, the resonances, and the disjunctions between formal and rationalistic modes of Western epistemology and ontology and different cultural, philosophical, paradigmatic, and subjugated expressions. Seeking understanding from a situated locale, with regard for language, history, and the importance of ambiguity. An appropriate visual metaphor for hermeneutic methodology might be opening. Whereas historically, research has been about reducing and defining, hermeneutics is a more generous approach. It is about opening and accepting to make sense of the world. The scholar orientated by the hermeneutic imagination engages in life hermeneutically, which means trying to understand, even more profoundly, what makes life life. A special affinity exists between hermeneutics and education because hermeneutics is inherently educative in its intent. It wants to listen, to affect and to invite, not merely to inform.